Good evening. I'm honored to speak to you today about living with uncertainty and delighted to wish you a good and sweet new year. Shana Tova Umituka. To begin, I hope you will join me for a few seconds and take a deep breath. And as we look forward to the new year, let out that breath slowly as we turn away from the year now closing. As a humanistic Jew for 50 years, I have learned one thing for certain, and that is that there are very few things in life of which we can be certain. We know that change is something we can depend on. We know with certainty that change constantly greets us. We may be barely aware of some changes, and then, out of the blue, we are suddenly assaulted by something so dramatic that it takes our breath away, and the change we are facing is painful, and it changes us and our lives forever. The pandemic is such one event. These past 18 months, the uncertainty has been heightened because it is so widespread. So much is still unknown and information is changing daily, and the suffering is so personal. And what we are uncertain about is frightening and traumatic for many. When the uncertainty is rooted in an experience fraught with fear, the anxiety is at the very least disturbing and often unbearable. Because the pandemic and the fear that accompanies it is universal, I have also experienced side effects. During our time together, I will share some of the things that I've dealt with and some of what I've done to move through this crazy, uncertain experience. In tackling this topic, I had to face full on my personal response to the pandemic. Although I woke up each day and poured my energy into my job, thank goodness for my work, by the early evening I was exhausted and unsettled, filled with fear, anxiety for my family and friends and the people of the world. I was capable of and got pleasure from only a few things that helped me escape reality: watching television, listening to books on tape, and eating, especially ice cream. Oren J. Sofer, a teacher of meditation and a writer, helps us see the reality of living with uncertainty. Over the last month, he said, life has revealed to us once again a deep truth, the truth of uncertainty. Uncertainty is the underlying reality of life. It's what's always been true. Everything is unstable, temporary. Our belief that everything is predictable is a delusion. Let's sit with that for just a moment. Our belief that everything is predictable is a delusion. As humanists, we are encouraged to deal with reality. This is both good and bad news. For most of us who have chosen this path, we prefer reality to fantasy, the truth to lies, and it is important to recognize our feelings of fear and despair. It is vitally important to accept and speak how we are feeling about our uncertain reality. It is not particularly helpful or healthy to live in a state of uncontrolled fear or anxiety over the long haul. Accepting reality is not always easy. Rabbi Sherwin Wine, founder of Humanistic Judaism, in his book, Staying Sane in a Crazy World, describes what he calls the grand illusion. In quoting him, he states, "The grand illusion is the belief that we live in a meaningful world, that the universe enforces the moral agenda of human beings, that the facts conspire to reward the good and punish the wicked, that the behavior of men and women ought to reflect the behavior of destiny." However, we know through our own observation that there is no evidence to the truth of that assertion. In giving up this illusion, do we abandon hope? No, Wine says, because strength comes from realism. Because strength comes from realism. Can humanistic Judaism help us accept reality and overcome our fears? I believe so. But what does humanistic Judaism and humanism teach us about how to deal with the painful truths and uncertainty? What do we have in our philosophical and psychological bag of tricks that can help us move from despair to hope? As a people, the Jews know that life is uncertain. It takes only a superficial look at Jewish history to understand that reality, and unfortunately, many of the examples are worse than the pandemic. These historical lessons have sensitized many Jews to the pain and suffering of others. But the experiences of other people do not always help us in the same way that learning from our own experiences can. We just need the tools to be able to do that. I've often been asked to name a book that has changed my life in a significant way, and there are many. However, without question, Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, has had the most profound impact on me. Frankl, an Austrian psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz, comments on the moments of great compassion he witnessed among other prisoners in the camps. He said that observing these acts of kindness was proof that everything can be taken from a person, but one thing: to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. I have learned that lesson over and over again. When I feel frustration, fear, and despair, I and only I have the power to determine how I will respond, how I will react. It is up to me and each of us, and happily, it is a skill that can be developed. As Wine writes in his poem on hope, hope is a choice never found, never given, always taken. Hope is an act of will. Optimists laugh, even in the dark. They know that hope is a lifestyle, not a guarantee. The single most important skill in coping with uncertainty is resilience. What do we know about resilience? Positive psychology, spearheaded by Dr. Martin Seligman in the late 60s, is a different approach to the psychology of the first half of the 20th century. Positive psychology looks at the things that go right with a person, rather than what is wrong. With this paradigm shift, positive psychology refers to resilience as the ability to cope with whatever life throws at us. A resilient person works through challenges by using personal resources, strengths, and other positive capacities of psychological capital, like hope, optimism, and self-worth. According to positive psychologists Lopez and Snyder, individuals who are resilient have these qualities: positive self-image, problem-solving skills, self-regulation, adaptability, understanding meaning and one's purpose in life, positive outlook, and skills and talents that are valued by self and community. I had to look a little harder to find support for my belief that laughter is one of the most significant factors in developing resilience. Amy D., a psychiatric registered nurse and motivational speaker, digs deep into the benefits of laughter in strengthening resilience. She notes that laughter is contagious. It's strong medicine for the body. It actually changes the hormones you produce, and it helps you cope better with everyday life. Humor doesn't ignore difficulties. It makes them tolerable. Humor is not meant to hurt or diminish pain people feel every day. Instead, it creates a momentary positive focus, which in turn helps us to live with the emotional draining things that we confront daily. Well, I admit that my humor can be a little dark, and that has worried me. But in reading, I found something that President Abraham Lincoln once said, so that makes it kosher. He said to his advisors who did not laugh when he read them something that he had found very funny. He said, "Why don't you laugh? With the fearful strain that is upon me night and day, if I did not laugh, I should die. And you need this medicine as much as I do. And so do all of us." After being fully vaccinated, I faced the difficult reality of my self-destructive behavior. By the end of April, I was determined to live and to do what I needed to do to be healthy. I have used a 2020 article by social worker Katie Hurley as an outline to suggest key steps to building resilience during a pandemic. I chose her article because it encompasses in a few short steps what I've been reading and learning about for years. I'll share some of the things that I'm doing, and I encourage you to spend time reflecting on what you are doing or what you would like to do to develop resilience. Hurley suggests that developing coping strategies can help us get through the coronavirus crisis and deal with future challenges. When we take a whole person approach to self-care, we care for both our body and our mind. Like building a muscle, she says, increasing your resilience requires time and dedication. If you don't put in the work, it might atrophy. People are conditioned to think of resilience as a personality trait. Either you have it or you don't. But this isn't the case. With intention and practice, we can become more resilient, no matter what our age. And she's not the first person to tell us that. So let's believe it. There isn't one specific strategy to use to build resilience. It's a process. It's a process of establishing connections, developing skills to coping with stress, adjusting our thought process, and fostering physical wellness. We all need support in life, not just in a crisis. Building a support network of empathic and compassionate people helps us to feel less alone in times of need. The new technology helps build connections between people even if we are limited in how many people we can see in 3 dimensions. While the exhaustion of stress might trick us into thinking that isolating ourselves is best, feeling supported by friends, family, and members of our community will help us through this difficult time. We all need to hone our coping skills so that we can work through the emotional shifts we are likely to experience in an adaptive way. There are coping strategies that tend to work effectively, kind of the best practices of coping strategies. Experts recommend deep breathing, meditation and visualization, and daily exercise. It's difficult to maintain an optimistic outlook when the future feels so uncertain, but positive thinking will help us focus on hope and visualize better times ahead. When we feel flooded with negative thoughts, stop, recognize them, and then voice them out loud. When we give voice to our thoughts and talk them through, they lose their power. At times, people convince themselves that certain things are true, even with no evidence. For example, this pandemic will never end. We'll never get back to normal. Or, what's the point of getting vaccinated when I have to get a booster, maybe even every year? These are called thought distortions and can become a powerful, albeit a self-destructing personal narrative. Stress can hobble our immune system and make us more susceptible to illness. This can, in turn, negatively affect our emotional state. Maintaining our health plays an important role in building resilience. This summer, I have dedicated myself to a healthier lifestyle, and the things that Hurley suggested are all on my list. They also suggest to prioritize sleep. According to the National Sleep Foundation, people have different sleep needs at different ages, but sleep is universally affected when we're under stress, regardless of our age. Experts in the know suggest that we maintain a consistent sleep schedule. Craving salty or sweet foods when we're under stress is not unique. Many people want comfort food in times of crisis. Planning ahead and making different choices has weaned me off sugar, and it really didn't take as long as I thought it would. Believe it or not, dehydration can exacerbate symptoms of stress. Not only do we feel more stress when we don't drink enough water, but we can become cranky and irritable. Sometimes we just need to remind ourselves to drink a glass of water. In addition to daily exercise, which is a natural stress reliever, and for me, exercise is walking and moving, we can do fun and mentally stimulating activities to enrich our mind and our spirit. Book groups or other social clubs have moved to Zoom or to other online platforms. Playing an online game with a friend or family member, working on a puzzle or puzzles, gardening, or another hobby or skill that engages our whole self all address keeping our mind active as well as keeping our body active. I know some of this seems a cliche, but maybe so many people keep talking about them because they work. When I started all this self-care at the end of April, I felt overwhelmed, angry about limitations, and unsure if I would be successful. I engaged in this process fully and dedicated myself to learning as much as I could to make my life healthier. how interesting it was that this request came my way and gave me the opportunities to synthesize and integrate my new lessons with what I knew about humanistic psychology and philosophy. So many thanks for this opportunity. The strength of humanistic Judaism in developing resilience lies in our philosophy of reality, our steadfast commitment to pursue truth, our ability to laugh at ourselves, the strength of having a supportive community, and an understanding that human beings make meaning. Meaning does not come from outside of ourselves. I remind us again of Frankl's wisdom on our freedom to choose how we respond, and on Wine's insight on choosing hope over despair, encouraging us to remember that we have both the power and the responsibility to create a meaningful and compassionate life for ourselves, even in these uncertain times. I have found that humanistic Judaism's poem, Where is My Light, has been a source of inspiration and calm, and is a strong reminder of how I have chosen to live my life. Many of you know it. Where is my light? My light is in me. Where is my hope? My hope is in me. Where is my strength? My strength is in me and in you. My intention was to share with you how humanistic Judaism's philosophy of light, hope, and strength can guide us to live with courage and optimism in these very uncertain times. And of course, to wish you a joyful new year, a Shana Tova.